We're gonna move on to Chicago, and we gotta talk about these bums. The 0-4 Bears. Okay, who's most to blame? As I'm pulling it up right now, who's most to blame for the Bears 0-4 start? And should they tank for Caleb Williams? And Zay, if you want to kick us off, by all means.
I mean, we've been blaming the coaching staff in regards to Chicago Bears for years now. We could go all the way back to when Trubisky was there, and he was blaming the coaching staff then in terms of why Chicago's not good, why the Bears are not operating well. And at this point, you gotta just look at the players and like, you're not executing. These players are not executing the way they need to. You had the lead, you had Justin Fields playing great, 4 touchdowns, and for whatever reason, you let the game slip. 4th and 1. 4th and short. Analytics say go for it. And the numbers say go for it. You don't secure a first down. And this is the issue. Like, you could blame the coach all you want. You could say, oh, why would you do that? Just play it safe. But who knows what the defense is going to do? I don't know. Because they've been letting guys come back in the game the entire season. So it's like, you have to look at the players and say, listen, y'all guys need to execute. We acquired all this talent. We paid all these guys. We had the biggest salary cap at one point, brought all these guys in, and we're still terrible. You have to look at each other like, what are we doing? Do we want to win? It's getting to that point because how many more coaches are you going to run through? There's not that many left. Like, how many more coaches are you going to run through? Like, who's available that you go after and say, yeah, he's going to change the organization. He's going to change the team. Look at a guy. Oh, I would say one last thing. Look at a guy like DeMeco Ryans in Houston. The Houston Texans were terrible last year. I think they were 1-15, 2-14, something like that. It was a crazy record. DeMeco Ryans got CJ Stroud. Not CJ Stroud. He got the team playing great. That defense is playing extremely stingy. CJ Stroud is lights out on the football field. He put the right coach staff around him to make sure that he's comfortable in the offensive scheme, to make sure the ball's going down the field. So it's getting to a point where it's like, how many more, as they're going after Justin Fields right now, how many more people are we going to blame for the lack of urgency that the players show on a week-to-week basis? I got to blame the players on this one.
Yeah, and for me, it starts at the top, man. Like, as much as we love Justin Fields because he's a fantasy guy, and a lot of us play fantasy football, and we like, man, he helped me win a championship last year because of the numbers and stuff. But as far as playing that quarterback position, he is not playing it the way that you want him to play. Finally, yesterday, he showed you some sparks where he was able to have the 4 touchdowns. And Zay, I'm happy that you mentioned CJ Stroud. CJ Stroud is showing you how to play that quarterback position, and by not turning over the football. And that's exactly what Justin Fields does on a game in and game out. He did it yesterday. He played lights out, and then the end, he has a terrible fumble, leads to a scoop and score that ties the game. Then he throws the terrible interception that leads to the end of the game. He gives up 4 sacks, where a lot of it is just him holding the football for too long, not dumping it down to his running backs. So even going into the season, I told people, I said, I don't trust in Justin Fields. He's a fantasy football quarterback. But when it comes to the X's and O's, he's more of an athlete than a great quarterback. I would rather have the guy like a CJ Stroud who isn't a super great runner and doesn't give you all of this super athletic ability, but he can play the quarterback position to a T over a guy like Justin Fields who can run and give you those highlight plays, but can't really play that quarterback position the way that it needs to be played to win games. And I think it comes down to him at the end. You can't have those 2 turnovers that late in the game, where if you can go down and get some points, you put the game away, you give yourself a win. So I think everybody is blaming the coaches. And yes, coaches should get some blame, but it always comes down to the guy at the top. The reason why Matt Nagy lost his job with the Bears, because Mitchell Trubisky wasn't that guy. Now he's a backup with the Steelers. The reason why this coaching staff and last year's coaching staff isn't looking too great, because Justin Fields is more of an athlete than a quarterback, and that's why they were able to give up that should have been a win yesterday. It's no excuse. They are the Bears, so the Bears gonna bear. But man, it's like you want to see Justin Fields be able to really play that quarterback position the way that you see it from the other top guys in the league.
Yeah. Quick question, because I want to be legitimate here. When did Ryan Poles took the GM job for this team? What year? Because I don't know at the top of my head.
think it might be like 2 years ago because he came from the Chiefs. He was with the Chiefs. It might have been like 2 years ago.
Okay, cool. I think for me, I'm gonna try to talk myself into this, right? Because realistically, we are trying to condense a broad topic, right? Because the blame could go around. Like this is a blame pie here that can go around.
Mm-hmm.
Coaching, Justin Fields, the players, the GM. And when you talk about this franchise and the history of this franchise, I mean, just look at it. They haven't had a 4,000-yard passer. How about ever? So there got to be something in the fabric of this culture. And obviously, I'm not going to say culture. I'm not going to say Chicago because that'd be too generic, right? Like I just can't blame Chicago. But when you look at their track record, I mean, it's alarming to me. Like it's the same thing. Mitch Trubisky, he's a bust. Justin Fields now, he's a bust now, right? So what is it? But if I could talk about today's Bears and just box it into that, who's most to blame? I'm gonna probably have to go with Ryan Poles, the GM, because I'm gonna be real here. I just felt that he was a little bit too economizing with his spending this off season. They had a lot of money, the number one cap space in the league, and they look, for talent in the clearance section, where it's like, no, like if you got to spend big to get big production, you do it. And he dropped about $91 million in total in the Tremaine Edmonds and Edwards duo, which is getting cooked in coverage right now and not generating any, pressure at all either. So this team lacks in the trenches. And, they picked Donnell Wright over Jalen Carter, which at the time I didn't mind because, you did needed help for Justin Fields, but you also needed that presence on the D line. And right now, it's just hard for me to look at what Jalen Carter is doing right now and be like, you missed out. So you combine that, and this is where I really want to get into. What fool, think that trading for Chase Claypool was going to be a good idea? Okay, because now that second pick that just turned into a number one pick, first round pick, excuse me, right? What fools will do that trade? I'm gonna tell you one thing, right? I always look at actions. Actions tell me a lot about you. There was one play where this guy was on the Steelers, and I know y'all remember this game. It was against the Vikings, where it was 4th and 1. He caught the ball. The clock is ticking, about 25 seconds left, no timeouts, and this guy is taunting on the middle of the field. And the lineman had to snatch the ball out of his hands. I don't want that guy on my team. Okay? I don't want that type of character on my team because now it's all about you and it's not about team. So when this guy's talking about how he's being utilized or the reporter is asking him the question and he's like, no, I'm not, being utilized right or whatever. Now he becomes a bigger distraction to already distraction franchises really is the Chicago Bears. So now it's adding salt to the wound. So they should have learned back then that you don't trust a guy like that. And these fools traded a second rounder that became a first rounder for a guy like that. And now he's in the doghouse. Don't even dress. Nah, not Matt Nagy. Luke Gessie shouldn't dress. Justin Fields shouldn't dress. None of these cats should dress. Okay, tell them to stay at home. Okay, I need some guys that can play. That would be me if I was a coach. All y'all staying home. If y'all want to play and win this game, y'all show up to work. The rest of y'all sit your behinds at home. Because I had enough and my job was on the line. So, yeah, I'm going to blame Ryan Poles because he oversees the team. He's responsible for the day-to-day operations that's going on. And right now, it's not looking good. So, yeah, I'm going to blame him, number one.
And I'm telling you this right now, just being around, the SC out here, Caleb Williams don't want to go play in Chicago. You know what I'm saying? So it's like they're going to have to try to figure out some things. How anybody pass up on Jalen Carter is crazy to me. I know he had the off-field situation, but the guy is a beast, is a baller, and clearly that's coming back to hunt him. Was trading the first overall pick the right move? Should they had tried to, maybe draft the Will Anderson who could have came and dominated there on the D-line and things like that? I know DJ Moore is a stud. He's a great player. But, offensively, they were trying to find ways, and it was working a little bit last season. So maybe they should have focused on their defense because their defense is just as big as a problem as anything. Me being a Chiefs fan, I know the best offensive game the Chiefs had all year has been the Bears because, they allowed the receivers to play well, which the Chiefs are trying to figure it out. So the Bears just have a lot that they have to figure out. First of all, what's their identity? Are they going to be an offensive first team that's trying to outscore people like the Miami Dolphins? Are they going to be a defensive first team, which I think they should lean towards because, you're playing in Chicago. When it gets really cold, you can't fully count on, offense to win you games. So I just know that they're not going to win many games this year, but you hope to see some growth. That's why this game was solid, to see something for Justin Fields, but he had to take it upon himself. It was so crazy coming into this year that people were actually mentioning MVP at all with this guy's name. I'm like, are you guys kidding me? This is Justin Fields we're talking about. He hasn't proven anything. And I tell people every time when it comes to sports, expectations changes everything. Last year, Justin Fields played with house money. Nobody cared, so he was able to do what he did. Coming in with all these expectations of, hey, he should have these numbers. He's an MVP candidate. Maybe you should take him first, second round in your fantasy. That has put a lot of pressure on him. And I think that kind of showed early. So it was good to see it.
But don't forget, that they passed on CJ Stroud and Bryce Young with that number one overall is more pressure.
Yeah, it's more pressure, especially when you see Anthony Richardson looking like a stud. CJ Stroud looking like a stud. We don't know what's up with Bryce yet, but he needs some talent over there. But yeah, Justin Fields, man, if you that guy, he start getting commercials and all of this. Like, you really need to show, put some Lamar Jackson seasons together where you're not turning the ball over, putting up great numbers. Then you can be something. So I always look at the quarterback, and then, of course, they got to get that rest of the team right. But it looks like the offense is good. Now let's see if the defense can take a step to help them be more competitive in games, because they just lost to some bums over there in Denver. So that's tough. What you got, Zay?
I just wanted to say that, like, this Bears team, like, it's getting embarrassing because, like, you only could do so much as a general manager. You bring players in, you hope it can work. You hope every analytic you did, every statistic you looked at, hopefully to mesh a team together so that the coach could put together a good season. And it comes out you're 0-4 in a division that could fairly be taken if this team played with some urgency. If Claypool played to his potential in terms of being a physical receiver, not just blocking and flailing on the floor or doing celebrations when you're trying to do a 2-minute offense. There's a lot of different things this Bears team is just lacking. I think it all starts with discipline. And, like I said before, we blame coaches every single year when it came to the Chicago Bears. We blame coaching. We blame lack of talent. We blame many things. Matt Nagy got booed out of Chicago because they blamed him over the players, despite them going to a playoff with Mitch Trubisky at quarterback. And now we're looking at it fast forward to 2023, and still the Bears just stink. It's something about Chicago that players don't want to be there for whatever reason. And Justin Fields, despite his amazing game, you're seeing even on the football field, he's playing for stats. He's not playing to win games. He's playing to get the numbers up. And you see that on a week-to-week basis.
But that falls in line with Ryan Poles, because you're responsible for the guys that you're bringing to shape your culture. For example, let's take Detroit. We don't got to go too far. Let's take Detroit and what they've been doing and what they've been building. They got guys to fit their culture, but also they weren't scared to spend. Like, they paid a little bit more for David Montgomery compared to what the Saints paid for Jamal Williams, who left the team. Right? They're not scared to spend. They spend basically in the draft to get a guy like Jahmyr Gibbs with a high pick that you really don't invest in running backs in the draft with the number 12 overall. They're not scared to go unorthodox and spend and take, positions that may not seem valuable, but they fit. Right now, Ryan Poles is playing this cheap game, and, he's taking unnecessary risks. And when he does take risks, it's for the wrong reasons. Like, for example, if Justin Fields is bad, well, you're responsible. Why? Because you had the number 1 overall pick. You could have got a quarterback. You could have got CJ Stroud in AR-15. There were so many good quarterbacks. Think about the draft before this draft with quarterbacks. It was terrible. This draft was much, much better. You could have got your guy. You have to make the Godfather decision. You can't be stuck on, well, Justin Fields is a cool guy. He's humble. I like that dude. We're going to shoot dice tomorrow. No, he got to go. If he's not the guy that you're envisioning to lead your franchise, he got to go. And that's why when you combine this with the Caleb Williams talk, absolutely, they should tank and gear up the tank for Caleb Williams, right? Because guess what? Like, they could have had Patrick Mahomes a couple years ago, and everybody is comparing Caleb Williams to Patrick Mahomes. But I'll tell you this, Caleb Williams is coming into the NFL more pro ready than Patrick Mahomes came from where he was in Texas Tech and where Caleb Williams is right now in USC. So that's going to be a scary sight. And plus, you get to reset the rookie deal of a quarterback. Because guess what? Justin Fields is in his third year. He's going to start coming with his agent, okay, dropping the bag or dropping the contract, paying my money, or I'm not showing up to work. And you're going to be looking at this cat like, yo, you realize what you did the last couple years? You ain't do jack. You talking about contract and $200 million. Nah. So, yeah, you reset the quarterback market. You tank for Caleb Williams, and you hope that Caleb Williams wants to come. Otherwise, that's another can of worms.
Because Fields does has a talent. You just have to see him do the things that a typical quarterback. The reason why Jimmy G can keep a job for so long and still stay in the NFL is not because he's this great athlete. Like, he doesn't have all the tools like Justin Fields. It's just he knows how to play the quarterback position. So Fields has to get that. But for a question for both of you guys, when does Chicago really think about that? Because looking at their schedule, I'm trying to see when their first win, before their bye. They got at Washington, Minnesota, Vegas, at Chargers, at Saints, Carolina, Detroit, then at Minnesota before their bye. So it looks like they can run off some L's. Like, do you get to a point this season where you say, hey, let's trade Justin Fields, because there's some team out there that sees the talent and that may say, hey, we can coach him up if we get him. Do you trade him to try to get a first or, a couple seconds and stuff like that so that you can tank for Caleb Williams? Because they have weapons. I like Herbert, the running back. They got DJ Moore and things like that. But to me, it's about building a defense. Poles got there last year in January. First thing he did was trade Khalil Mack. And we just see that dude still can play. Just picked up 6 sacks.
And he traded Walker Smith as well.
So he traded away the defense. And I think that they have to build a defense around any young quarterback that you have. Like Patrick Mahomes didn't win a Super Bowl until the Chiefs got the defense right. So I think the Bears have to focus on that. But my question for you guys is, do you think mid-season you might say, hey, it's time to just start from scratch? Because Ryan Poles wasn't there to draft Justin Fields. He came after that. So maybe they're like, let's go get our own quarterback and go from there. Or do you just stick it out with Justin Fields and, see what you got?
Can I go real quick, Lou?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think the Bears should trade Justin Fields mid-season. I felt like they should have traded him last year. In terms of draft pick or Justin Fields. I think that would have been the year they actually trade for a quarterback, because we've seen what Justin Fields is. He doesn't want to throw the football. And I think if that's not the route they want to go to in terms of RPOs, but Justin Fields all day, then they should have gotten a quarterback differently from what they're running with. But in terms of the team that actually wants to do a lot of the running back schemes, RPOs, and stuff like that, we're talking about Arthur Smith out there in the Atlanta Falcons. He's looking for a quarterback in that regard. I think that's a match made in heaven for Chicago, because Chicago can get more picks to bolster whatever they need for talent-wise, and Atlanta gets a quarterback that fits their scheme. Unfortunately for the talent on Atlanta, is going to be the same issue of not getting the ball to the talent. But since your quarterback is so damn gifted on your feet, now you could work with Bijan and Fields all day, because now teams have to prepare who are they going to focus on most. Justin Fields running out the pocket and getting first downs, or Bijan Robinson going for 15, 20-yard runs.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, because Desmond Ridder looked like straight booty cheeks. Yesterday. I'm telling you, bro, they gonna need a quarterback. So that you actually helped me out here, Zay, because I was saying realistically what team was going to trade for a quarterback mid-year, but that team is exactly the team that if any team, it would be that team, because of Desmond Ridder and all the weapons that they have in the South that potentially still could be open to win. So I like that team a lot. I just think for me in closing, right? When you talk about trading the defense, that's another point that I want to expand on, because literally we know Walker Smith got a $100 million contract in Baltimore, and the two guys that they took to replace him, they spent $91 million. So they spent that to replace that. Two guys to replace that. Like, it didn't make sense. That's why I'm blaming Ryan Poles, because realistically, he did some good things, but like when you really look at his moves, it's really overrated. You know what I'm saying? I'm not gonna lie. Like, I wasn't caught on to this. You know, in the beginning, I picked the Bears. I'm like, yo, who was the top most improved team this offseason? I said the Bears and the Lions. Like, I thought the Bears was improved on paper. But then when you really look at everything and you see how it's playing out right now, clearly I was on drugs that day because it's not working right now. So, yeah, I'm going to just leave it like that.
Please like and subscribe for all the up-to-date content. You've been slinging shows left and right, slinging content left and right. Please don't miss anything. If you do, like, subscribe, leave a comment, or leave a question, something you may want answered, something you may have. All ideas are great ideas. Nothing's a dumb question.